is also has the pork chop that's right in, right out. And then the driveway to the far north, that would require, the applicant has been negotiating with the city for a easement across that city property so that it can provide full access, meaning there can be turning movements left, north on 99th or right, and that driveway happens to be aligned with the driveway across the street at Park West. The architecture, showing you just a version of the elevation. Again, we'll still have to, if this item is approved, we'll still have to go through site plan and design review as part of that, but it does provide for visual interest along both street frontages through the use of horizontal and vertical building articulation, varied roof lines, and a mix of stucco and metal materials. The landscape palette will be enhanced at the corner of 99th and Northern, and the landscape will also be designed to mimic the look and feel along Park West and the multifamily project at Prescott Park West to the north. Now, the gateway nature of the site, being that it's at the city limit, while the applicant will meet the city sign code, they've agreed to incorporate signage that will further help announce entry and arrival into the city of Peoria. As part of any rezone application, we do ask for a traffic impact analysis. It's prepared by a licensed professional, and it is reviewed by our traffic engineer as part of our engineering department. And they have accepted the findings of the preliminary TIA, and what they found was that the traffic restrictions and the improvements that will have to be made along the half street do provide for adequate access to the surrounding network. In a prior slide, I did talk about the 3 points of access that we provided. Some of the concerns earlier on that we heard from some of the citizens was about whether the number of trips would impede, fire response times from the station at 99th, at Olive and 99th Avenue. And so, with the development cage to assuage those concerns, I can report that the fire department, they have reviewed the case, and they have determined that their ability to respond to calls is not inhibited by this case. Finally, there are also concerns about 99th Avenue. 99th Avenue, when we look at the TIA, does carry a relatively low volume of cars. Nonetheless, I do want to report that the city is currently in design for a signal at Olive and 99th Avenue. So we're in design, and in the CIP, they have expected construction to occur in this fiscal year, so in the next 6-7 months or so at that corner. I want to talk a little bit about public outreach. So as you know, and you've seen from prior cases, when we get a case in, we do send out a notice of application to all owners within a 600-foot radius and all registered HOAs within 1 mile. We also require a neighborhood meeting, and so the neighborhood meeting was held on September 21st. It was held at the Holiday Inn in Glendale. And I do want to mention that 600 feet is the minimum notification requirement. The applicant is responsible for sending out the notification for the neighborhood meeting. They chose to expand the notification radius to 1,200 feet. They wanted to reach a wider audience. So as a result of that wider audience, 8 individuals did attend the meeting. And so inquiries that we received at the meeting were about traffic, landscaping at the site, emergency vehicle response time, and construction timing. The applicant also chose to do additional outreach. They went door to door, namely in the residential community north of Park West, to try to solicit additional feedback. And these were all property owners that were part of that 1,200-foot radius, and so they did that door to door outreach in there. As a result, to date, the city has received 45 letters in support and 8 letters in opposition. I'll note that most of the notes in opposition occurred earlier on about the time of the neighborhood meeting. The reason I have 45 star is just to note that we did receive 26 of those letters today, and we did hand those out to the council. So that's part of that overall 45 number that we have up there. So those in support noted that did support the case, that there seems to be a lack of service stations along this corridor and in this area. They believe that the elevations and landscape palette that was shown is appropriate and high quality, and that given the context, namely being adjacent to a wastewater influent pump station, provided for limited land use options. So they thought this was an appropriate land use there. Those in opposition noted undesirability of the service station use, and also traffic on Northern Avenue, and as I mentioned earlier, the perceived hindrance to public safety response times. The item went to the Planning and Zoning Commission. We provide the same level of notification through a notice of hearing postcard. We also provide a legal ad in the paper, and we do require the site be posted with our requirements. We hold a public hearing on October 21st. We had 3 speakers that were present in support of the case and none in opposition. After deliberating and hearing the information, the commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of both cases to the City Council. So I end with the key findings for the two items that are in front of us. For the minor general plan amendment, we believe that given the constraints of the current land use designation, this provides a modification that advances the general plan. The commercial designation appears to be an appropriate designation given the context and ability to provide local and regional services. With the rezone, we believe this provides for an appropriate development program at this site. It advances the commercial land use designation, and that the PAD, in combination with the conditions of approval that are in your packet, we believe will provide for appropriate controls to guide development of this site. And Mayor and Council, with that, we have two recommended actions tonight. One is to approve the minor general plan amendment as recommended by staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the other one is the rezone option. I will note that Mr. Ben Tate and I believe Mr. Jason Morris are also in attendance and desire to speak as well on the case. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for that presentation. And we do have two speaker request forms, and so I'm going to begin with those. I would like to ask Mr. Jason Morris to proceed to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor, Council members. Jason Morris, excuse me, Jason Morris with Morris on behalf of the applicant Speedway. Pleasure to be here this evening. Mr. Hawkes has done an incredible job giving a very detailed description of both requests in front of you. While we're happy to make a complete presentation, you also have a very busy agenda. I would like to point out that we received direction from the council. We worked with Councilmember Dunn in terms of not only the outreach, but also the ultimate design of the property, and worked with staff extensively because this was actually filed before the pandemic. It actually took a considerable amount of time, but that time actually allowed us to make the project better and make the outreach more complete. I'd also like to single out the Peoria residents who came to Planning Commission because two residents came to Planning Commission, frankly, opposed to the project. And they listened to staff, they listened to the applicant's presentation, and actually came to the podium, both of whom ultimately ended up supporting the project. And I appreciate that. I think it says a lot about your citizens. Frankly, that has never happened to me in doing this for 25 years. So it was either a very good presentation or a very good day. And I appreciate the opportunity to present this case. So thank you. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will go ahead and move on to the next speaker request for then. Peggy Baxter, if you would kindly come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. I'd appreciate it. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm speaking just as a resident. I did some research and some homework on this. I got interested in it as I was doing it, and it seems strange to be interested in a gas station. But I guess if you've ever been driving around and your needle gets close to empty and you don't see a gas station around, maybe you would get interested in a gas station. But you know, there are restaurants and there's shopping and there's movie theater. There are services and things in that area, and there really aren't any gas stations close by down there. And as I was doing my research, I got to thinking, they need a gas station down there. So my husband and I, we drove down there together and we looked around, and I tried to think of it from, okay, because there's a residential area there too. And as a person living in that community, what would be the pros and cons? And really, in my mind, it was all positive. That gas station would only benefit that area. If you think about it, a gas station really doesn't initiate more traffic. It doesn't do anything to take away, but it really only gives. The people that you know, living in that little community, it's great to have a gas station right there when you're getting ready to go to work or whatever you're doing. It's there. And I think of it as close to the 101. If you think about people coming into that city of Peoria down there, whether they're visiting or just coming from another area within the state, and maybe you're going to stop at one of those restaurants and have a meal or do some shopping and then hop on that 101 and go wherever they're going to go. They're going to fill that gas tank before they go. And looking at the designs up there, the architecture, well, not even the architecture, but I guess I want to say the landscaping is beautiful. So to me, I think it's a win-win and a very positive thing. So I'm here to support it. I think it would be a wonderful, wonderful thing for that area of Peoria. And that's what I have to say, so thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it so much. All right, council members, is there any comments or discussion? Councilmember Dunn.
Actually, yes. So I had put this out to the constituency, social media, Citizens Advisory Committee, and e-newsletter to the district. This is obviously in Pine District. And I have to say, Jason, you did a fantastic job, and, this doesn't lie. I mean, this many residents want something, and we have 8 in objection to it. So, as a council member, we have to go by the majority, just like up here we go by the majority. So, based on that, I'd like to make a motion to approve 25R.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council, please vote. And 25R passes unanimously. And now we will vote on item 26R. Is there a motion?
Motion?
Do we have a motion and a second? Please vote. And 26R passes unanimously. Thank you very much. All right, we will now move on to item 27R, Specific Area Plan Amendment, Grand Commons, Grand Avenue, and 85th Avenue. Mr. Tyne.
Great, and I'll pass it immediately over to Mr. Hawkes to speak to this action item.
Okay, similarly to the last case, we have 27R and 28R. These are associated cases. Again, one presentation, and we'll look for 2 separate actions. This case pertains to the 7.5 acre site identified in red. This is the former site of the Smitty's